Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel, Cooking for the Family. I'm Devon, and today I'm going to share with y'all how I make carnitas in a crock pot. This is a recipe I've been using for years, since my boys were little and they played baseball. I would put the carnitas on before we left the house. Folks would come over after the games and we would just hang out and have a blast. So this is how I do it. So I have a half of a white onion, and then I also have some garlic, and I have 2 navel oranges. For my white onion, I cut it into chunks, and then also for my garlic, and that's 3 cloves of garlic. I don't mince them, I just do a nice chop on them, but I don't mince them. I want to have those nice chunky pieces of the garlic. I'm using 2 navel oranges, and be sure with the oranges, like I was rolling it on the countertop, you want to definitely loosen up that pulp so you can get as much juice out of your oranges as possible. Now with the meat that I'm using, you can use pork butt or either pork shoulder. I'm using 4 pounds. This is actually 4.3 pounds. So anywhere between 4 pounds and 5 pounds, this recipe will work. I rinse and pat dry off my meat, so that way our rub is going to stick to our meat. I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands up real quick, and then we're going to get started on our rub mixture. So our rub mixture is going to be some oregano. You can use just maybe say oregano, or it might even say Mexican oregano. And we're going to be using 3 teaspoons, and I do heaping teaspoons, so we're going to be doing 3 heaping teaspoons of the oregano. Now, although we're making our carnitas in the crock pot, I'll share with you and show you if you want to have like the little crispy pieces of carnitas. I'll share with you how to do that as well. Next, I'm going to use some cumin, and we're going to be using 2 teaspoons of the cumin. The cumin is a nice smoky flavor. It's not very smoky like say barbecue, but it's that flavor that you find in many Mexican food dishes, meats especially, or even if you're making chili, definitely always want to have some cumin on hand. So after I put my 2 teaspoons of my cumin, next I'm going to put some kosher salt. Now if you don't have kosher salt, you can use regular table salt. Now I put in 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, because we can always add a little bit more salt and season it up to our taste versus trying to take seasoning away. And sometimes carnitas can tend to be salty, especially go out to a restaurant. Sometimes it can be really salty, and so to avoid that, we're just going to put 2 teaspoons of the kosher salt. Now if you're using table salt, you would want to reduce that to 1 teaspoon. Now for my pork shoulder that I'm using, came in 2 pieces in the package. Typically I have 1 whole piece that's usually between the 4 to 5 pounds, but in the grocery store when I went to go make my purchase, they didn't have it like that. So normally though, I do have 1 solid piece, but sometimes we just have to work with what we got. These pieces are also a little leaner. Most of the time when you get your pork shoulder or your pork butt, they're going to have like that fat cap on top, and then I usually have to trim a little bit of that back, but because this doesn't have that thick fat cap, I didn't need to do any trimming of my meat at all. Now once I have my rub and I've pressed it into my meat, I'm going to go ahead and put it inside of my crock pot, and I'm going to put the pieces that have the fatty side up and the lean piece down, and that would be the same if your meat came in 1 total piece, 1 big piece. I go ahead and I put my onion all around the sides of my meat. I also drizzle on top and around the sides my pieces of garlic that we chopped up. I go ahead and squeeze my fresh oranges right over the meat, over the seasonings and everything all over. Now with the 2 navel oranges that we're using, remember how we really made sure that we rolled them on the countertop, so that way we loosened up the pulp to get as much juice as possible. Now total you're going to end up having about a half a cup up to about 3/4 of a cup of fresh squeezed orange juice. And the fresh squeezed juice from the 2 oranges is all that I put on my carnitas when I cook them in the crock pot. I don't add any additional liquid, because as the meat cooks, it's going to release all of its wonderful juices and flavors right into our slow cooker. So what I do first is I start it on high for 1 hour. Then after the 1 hour, I come back, I check it, and then I reduce the temperature from high to low, and I put it on low for 6 hours. And it's going to take anywhere from 5 hours to 6 hours. I like to set it at 6 hours because usually I would be gone, and so I'll set it for the 6 hours, so that way I like to make sure that it's totally cooked. I wanted to share with you what it looks like about halfway through that cooking time. Well, our carnitas is nice and done. I went on and checked on it right now, right before our timer was up. And when you go to grab it with your tongues, if it yields to the pressure of you picking it up with your tongues or with your fork, then that's an indication that your meat has cooked well. Now, if you go to pick it up and it's still really tough, or it's really hard, your meat needs to cook longer, because the longer it cooks, it will soften up, and also through that process it'll also get done. And you see, we have all this wonderful cooking liquid that came off of our meat, all of that nice juice. And what I have found in the past, I used to put too much liquid in the beginning, and so in essence I was boiling my carnitas, and so it just never really came out the way I wanted it to. And then I had a tip from my sister-in-law, and so I put a lot less liquid and it started to come out perfect. And so now what I do is I go ahead and I shred my carnitas. Now for crispy, now there's two ways that I do it, and there's two ways that you can do it as well. The first way is I go ahead and I shred my meat, and then I take the meat and I put it directly back into the crock pot, just like that. Now before I put it in the crock pot, I do remove about half of the cooking liquid, and we reserve that so that way as it's on low or as it's on warm, if you need to add any liquid to the pot, you can always just use that original cooking liquid from the meat. Now the second way is if you want to have those crispy edges or those little crispy bits from your carnitas, I'm going to share with you what we're going to do. But first we're going to taste our carnitas for seasoning. I'm going to go ahead and get you guys a nice bite. Go ahead and take your bite. Now I'm going to take my bite and see where we're at with our seasoning, if we need to add a little bit more. Oh, it's nice and tender. We need a little bit more seasoning. I'm going to add a little bit more kosher salt. If you're using table salt, you can go ahead and add a little bit more as well, up to your taste, up to your liking. Also, you want to be sure that you taste the liquid, the cooking liquid as well, because remember, our meat will be sitting in the cooking liquid. For the crispy edges, you can go ahead, use 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. Let the oil get nice and hot, and then you want to put as much meat as you'd like into your pan. Go ahead and toss it on a high flame until you get those nice brown edges, just like that, and you can serve your meat directly out of your pan. Now what I like to do though is after I've crisped it up a little bit, I also go ahead and I put it back in the crock pot if I'm going to be serving and people are going to be serving themselves and making their own. This way it keeps it warm, and I do have a little bit of those brown bits as well on top. So I have half my liquid that I reserved and I have to the side. Tonight for dinner we're having rice, beans, and carnitas tacos. I have my cilantro. I put some salsa on there. I'm going to squeeze a little bit of fresh lime as well. I'm getting your bite ready, so get ready for your bite. In the description box below, I have a list of ingredients for the carnitas in the crock pot and a link to my vlog on Spanish rice and refried beans. Well, that is it for me today. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Don't forget to show this video some love. Give it a thumbs up. Click share this video with a friend or family. And remember, it's always good when Devon is cooking for the family. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.